The alarm bells rang through the small salvage ship as Jiho Kim pulled on his work gloves. The steel Phoenix was not much to look at from the outside. Old metal plates covered most of the hull, and the paint had long since faded to a dull gray. But she was his ship, and she had never let him down. Another derelict ship on the scanner, boss, called Hyan from the navigation seat. His voice carried through the narrow corridors of the ship. Looks like one of those fancy alien transports, the kind that rich folks use to travel between planets. Jiho walked to the front of the ship where the big viewing window showed nothing but empty space and distant stars. Then he saw it. A long silver ship drifted in the darkness like a sleeping giant. No lights blinked on its surface. No engines glowed at the back. It just hung there in the cold void of space. How long has it been floating out here? Jiho asked as he studied the alien vessel. Hard to say. Could be days or weeks. The hull looks intact, though. Might be some good salvage inside. Jiho nodded. Salvage work was not glamorous, but it paid the bills. Every piece of alien technology they could recover would sell for good money at the trading stations. The universe was full of different alien races, and most of them built things that humans found useful. Take us in slow, he told Hyan. I want to scan for any signs of life before we board. The steel Phoenix moved closer to the derelict ship. Jiho could see now that it was much larger than his own vessel. Smooth curves and elegant lines marked it as Villani design. The Villani were known throughout the galaxy as peaceful traders and diplomats. They rarely traveled alone and almost never without escort ships. No life signs on the main scanner, Hyan reported. But there might be some interference from their hull material. You know how these alien ships are built. Jiho put on his EVA suit and checked the air tanks. The suit was old but reliable. Like everything else on his ship, it had been repaired more times than he could count. He strapped his tool belt around his waist and grabbed his portable scanner. I am going over to take a look. Keep the engines warm in case we need to leave. Quickly, you think there might be trouble, boss? With alien ships, you never know. Could be pirates or worse. Jiho opened the airlock and stepped into the cold vacuum of space. His magnetic boots clanked against the steel Phoenix hull as he walked to the small shuttle bay. The shuttle was even older than the main ship, but it would get him across the short distance to the derelict vessel. The alien ship grew larger as he approached. Up close he could see that the hull was not damaged. No weapon marks or collision damage. Whatever had happened to this ship, it was not from external attack. The main docking port was still functional, and Jiho was able to connect his shuttle without any problems. The inside of the alien ship was dark and quiet. Emergency lighting cast long shadows down the corridors. Jiho turned on his helmet lights and began to explore. The air was still breathable according to his scanner, but he kept his helmet on anyway. Better to be safe when dealing with unknown alien technology. The ship was beautiful inside. Smooth walls curved in graceful arcs, and soft lighting had once made the corridors warm and welcoming. Now everything was cold and still. Jiho found the main cargo hold and began scanning for anything valuable. His scanner beeped as it detected various pieces of equipment and supplies. Then he heard something that made him freeze. A soft sound like someone breathing. He turned off his scanner and listened carefully. There it was again. Definitely breathing. And it was coming from somewhere deeper in the cargo hold. Jiho drew his small plasma pistol and moved slowly toward the sound. Behind a stack of cargo containers, he found something that made his heart race. A young alien female lay curled up in a small space between two large boxes. She was unconscious but breathing steadily. She was clearly Villani. Her skin had a pale blue tint, and delicate crystal-like markings covered her arms and face. The markings were dark now, but Jiho had heard that they glowed with different colors when Villani were healthy and active. Her breathing was shallow, and her clothes were torn in several places. Jiho knelt down beside her and gently touched her shoulder. Her skin was cold, but not dangerously so. She stirred slightly at his touch but did not wake up. His scanner showed that she was alive but weak. She needed medical attention soon. "What happened to you?" he whispered to himself. A quick search of the cargo hold revealed no other survivors. Whatever had happened to the crew of this ship, the alien girl was the only one left alive. Jiho found evidence of a struggle. Blast! Marks on the walls and scattered personal belongings suggested that pirates or raiders had attacked the ship. He made a decision that would change everything. Instead of just taking the salvage and leaving, he carefully lifted the alien girl in his arms. She was lighter than he expected. The Vellani were known to be more delicate than humans and many other spacefaring races. Back on the Steel Phoenix, he placed her in the small medical bay. The automatic systems began scanning her vital signs and administering basic medical care. Hyan appeared in the doorway and stared in shock. "Boss, what are you doing? We cannot take alien refugees. You know the rules about that. Look at her, Hyan. She is just a kid. I cannot leave her to die in that empty ship. But if she is Vellani, then whoever attacked her ship might come looking. The Korthek have been raiding Vellani ships for years. They sell them as slaves to collectors who want living mood lamps." Jiho felt anger rise in his chest. The Korthak were brutal raiders who preyed on peaceful species. They were exactly the kind of aliens that gave all non-humans a bad reputation among some human colonies. "Then we make sure they do not find her," he said firmly. As if responding to his words, the alien girl's crystal markings began to glow very faintly. Soft blue light pulsed slowly across her skin like a gentle heartbeat. It was the first sign that she might recover from whatever had happened to her. "Set course for the outer rim," Jiho told Hyan. "We need to get far away from here before anyone comes looking." As the Steel Phoenix moved away from the derelict ship, Jiho watched the alien girl sleep in the medical bay. He had no idea what he was getting himself into. All he knew was that leaving her behind was not an option. Humans had a reputation in the galaxy for being stubborn and reckless. Today he was proving that reputation right. The crystal markings on her skin pulsed a little brighter, as if she somehow knew she was safe now. In the vast darkness of space, a small salvage ship carried an unlikely passenger toward an uncertain future. Behind them, the empty alien transport drifted, alone among the stars like a silent witness to whatever tragedy had occurred there. Jiho Kim had just made a choice that would challenge everything the galaxy thought it knew about humans and aliens. But for now, all that mattered was that the alien girl was alive and under his protection. Whatever came next, they would face it together. 3 days had passed since Jiho found the alien girl on the derelict ship. She had been sleeping most of the time while the medical bay worked to heal her injuries. The crystal markings on her skin glowed softly now with a pale green light that pulsed in rhythm with her breathing. It was beautiful to watch, but Jiho had no idea what the colors meant. The Steel Phoenix was now far from the salvage site. They were traveling through empty space between star systems where few ships ever went. Hyan had plotted a course that would keep them away from major shipping lanes and patrol routes. If someone was looking for the alien girl, they would have a hard time finding her here. "She is waking up, boss," Hyan called from the medical bay. Jiho hurried from the engine room where he'd been making repairs. The alien girl was sitting up on the medical bed looking around with wide eyes. Her crystal markings were now glowing brighter with swirls of blue and yellow light that moved across her skin like living tattoos. When she saw Jiho, her markings changed to a deep purple color and she pressed herself back against the wall of the medical bay. Fear was written clearly on her face, even though her features were alien. Some emotions looked the same no matter what species you were. "It is okay," Jiho said in a gentle voice. "You are safe now. No one is going to hurt you." The alien girl tilted her head and looked at him with confusion. She opened her mouth and spoke in a language that sounded like musical notes mixed with soft whispers. It was beautiful but completely incomprehensible to Jiho. "I do not understand," he said. "Do you speak any human languages?" She spoke again, in her musical voice, but the words meant nothing to him. Her crystal markings shifted to a frustrated orange color, and she pointed to herself and then to him. She was trying to communicate, but they had no common language. Jiho went to the ship's computer terminal and activated the universal translator. Most spaceships carried these devices to help with trade and diplomacy between different species. The computer scanned the alien girl's speech patterns and began building a translation matrix. "This may take some time," the computer announced in its flat mechanical voice. Vellani language patterns are complex and contain emotional components that do not translate directly into human speech. The alien girl watched the computer screen with interest. Her markings shifted to a curious pink color as she saw symbols and graphs appear on the display. She seemed to understand that Jiho was trying to find a way for them to talk to each other. While the computer worked, Jiho brought her some food and water. She accepted them gratefully and ate with delicate movements. Everything about her seemed graceful and refined. The Vellani were known to be a cultured people who valued art and beauty above material wealth. "My name is Jiho," he said slowly while pointing to himself. She understood the gesture and pointed to herself. "Nara," she said in her musical voice. "Nara," Jiho repeated. The name sounded like a gentle song when she said it. Over the next few hours they worked together to establish basic communication. Jiho would point to objects around the ship and say their names in human language. Nara would repeat the words and then say them in her own language. Her markings glowed with soft yellow light when she was concentrating, and bright blue when she successfully learned a new word. The universal translator was making slow progress, but it was not enough for real conversation. Frustrated with the lack of progress, Jiho had an idea. He went to the ship's maintenance storage and found some colored light panels that were normally used for emergency signals. Back in the medical bay, he arranged the light panels in a row and connected them to a simple control system. When he pressed different buttons, the panels glowed with different colors. Nara watched with fascination as the lights changed from red to blue to green. "Your markings change color," Jiho explained while pointing to the crystal patterns on her skin. "Maybe the colors mean something." Nara's eyes widened with understanding. Her markings brightened to a brilliant gold color, and she nodded enthusiastically. She pointed to the light panels and then to her own crystal markings. Then she began demonstrating. When she thought about something sad, her markings turned deep blue. When she was happy, they glowed warm yellow. Fear made them purple, and anger turned them bright red. Each emotion had its own color and intensity. Jiho quickly programmed the light panels to match the colors he observed. Soon they had created a basic emotional communication system. Nara could express her feelings by making her markings glow, and Jiho could respond using the colored lights. Through this system, Nara began to tell her story. Deep blue sadness as she explained that her ship had been attacked. Bright red anger when she spoke of the raiders who killed her companions. Purple fear when she described hiding in the cargo hold while the attackers searched the ship. But when her markings turned to warm gold as she looked at Jiho, he realized she was expressing gratitude. She was thankful that he had found her and brought her to safety. "Who attacked your ship?" Jiho asked using a combination of simple words and colored lights. Nara's markings flashed angry red, and she spoke a word that the translator managed to decode. "Korthik." Jiho felt cold anger in his chest. The Korthik were the worst kind of raiders. They specialized in capturing members of peaceful species to sell as slaves or exotic pets to wealthy collectors. Vellani were particularly prized because their empathic abilities and color-changing markings made them living mood displays for the entertainment of others. "How many were in your group?" he asked. Nara held up both hands twice to indicate 20 people. Then her markings turned to deep morning blue as she pointed to herself. She was the only survivor. Through their improvised communication system, Jiho learned that Nara had been part of a diplomatic mission. Her people were trying to establish trade relationships with human colonies in the Outer Rim. She was young but already trained as an empath and cultural interpreter. "Why do your people want to trade with humans?" Jiho asked. Nara's markings shifted to curious pink as she struggled to find the right words. Finally, she managed to communicate through gestures and simple translated phrases that her people found humans fascinating. Where other species saw problems and gave up, humans found solutions. Where others feared to take risks, humans pushed forward. "Anyway, your people never stopped trying," she managed to say in broken human language. "Other species call humans stubborn. We call humans ... hope." The word hope came through the translator clearly, and it surprised Jiho. He had never thought of human stubbornness as hopeful before. Most aliens seemed to think it was a character flaw. As the days passed, their communication improved. Nara was a quick learner, and soon she could speak basic human language, although her accent made everything sound like music. Jiho found himself looking forward to their conversations. Her crystal markings had become a constant source of fascination for him. They revealed her emotions in ways that human faces never could. When she was happy, the markings danced with golden light. When she was thinking hard, they pulsed with steady blue rhythms. And sometimes when she looked at him, they glowed with soft purple light that seemed different from her fear response. "What does purple mean when you are not afraid?" he asked one evening as they shared dinner in the small galley. Nara's markings brightened to that same soft purple, and she looked down at her hands with what seemed like embarrassment. "Purple is ... How do you say when someone makes you feel warm inside? When you want to be close to them?" The admission hung in the air between them. Jiho realized that despite their different species, something was growing between them. Her markings glowed brighter purple, as if responding to his thoughts. But their peaceful time was about to end. Heian's voice crackled over the ship's intercom with urgent news. "Boss, you need to get up here right now. I am picking up Korthak signatures on the long-range scanner. 3 ships and they are following our course." Nara's markings flashed bright red with terror. Somehow the Korthak had found them. Jiho ran to the bridge with Nara close behind him. Her crystal markings were flashing rapid pulses of red and purple, as fear and panic fought for control of her emotions. The main display screen showed 3 dark shapes moving against the star field. They were still far away, but getting closer with each passing minute. "How did they find us?" Jiho asked as he slid into the pilot's seat. "I do not know, boss. We have been running silent and staying away from all the main routes. But those are definitely Korthak ships, and they are following our exact path." Nara moved to the side of the bridge where she could see the display. Her markings went completely dark for a moment and then blazed with brilliant white light. She was terrified, but also angry. "They hunt me," she said in her accented human speech. "Korthak have special ways to track Villani. They use our own empathic abilities against us." "What do you mean?" Jiho asked while checking the ship's weapons and shields. The Steel Phoenix was not built for combat, and her defenses were minimal. "When Villani feels strong emotions, we send out." "How do you say waves?" "Like ripples in water. Korthak have machines that can detect these waves from very far away." Jiho cursed under his breath. That meant as long as Nara was scared or upset, the Korthak could track them anywhere in the galaxy. There was no way to outrun ships that could follow an emotional trail. "Can you control your emotions? Make the waves stop." Nara's markings shifted to sad blue. "I try, but fear is too strong. When I think of Korthak, I remember my friends dying. The emotions come without permission." The communication system crackled to life with a harsh alien voice speaking in broken human language. Human vessel Steel Phoenix. You carry stolen property of the Korthak Empire. Surrender the Vellani female immediately, and you will be allowed to leave. Jiho activated the communication system and spoke into the microphone. This is Captain Jiho Kim of the Steel Phoenix. I do not carry any stolen property. The Vellani female is under my protection as a refugee. Rough laughter came through the speakers. Refugees have no rights in Korthak space human. The female belongs to Commander Vex 9 by right of conquest. She will make an excellent addition to his collection. Like hell she will, Jiho muttered. Then he spoke louder into the microphone. The Vellani female stays with me. If you want her, you will have to take her. So be it, human. Your stubborn nature is well known throughout the galaxy. It will be amusing to break you. The communication cut off, and the 3 Korthak ships began accelerating toward the Steel Phoenix. Their weapon systems were already charging according to the scanner readings. Boss, we need to run, Hyen said from the navigation station. Those ships are faster than us and much better armed. In a straight fight, we do not stand a chance. Jiho studied the tactical display showing the positions of all 4 ships. The Korthak were approaching in a standard hunting formation designed to cut off escape routes. They expected the Steel Phoenix to try to run in a straight line like most civilian ships would do that, but Jiho had an advantage that the Korthak did not know about. He had been working in this sector of space for over 10 years. He knew every asteroid field and gravity well within 100 light years. And right now they were approaching the Kepler debris field. Hyen plot a course straight into the debris field. Maximum speed. Boss, that is suicide. The asteroids in there are unstable. The gravity fields shift constantly, and there are electromagnetic storms that can fry our systems. Exactly. That is why the Korthak will not expect us to go in there. Nara moved closer to Jiho's pilot seat. Her markings were pulsing with mixed colors as she fought to control her fear. I will help, she said quietly. My empathic abilities work both ways. I can feel the emotions of the Korthak pilots. What do you mean? I can sense their feelings. Fear, anger, confidence. If I know what they are feeling, I can predict what they will do next. The Steel Phoenix turned sharply toward the debris field, just as the first Korthak energy beams lashed out. The shots missed, but not by much. The enemy ships were closing fast, and their weapons were much more powerful than anything the small salvage vessel carried. Entering the debris field now, Hyen announced as the first asteroids appeared on the scanner, the space around them filled with tumbling rocks and metal fragments. Some of the asteroids were as large as buildings, while others were no bigger than a human fist. All of them were moving in unpredictable patterns as gravity fields from nearby planets pulled them this way, and that Jiho began flying like no human had ever flown before. He threaded the Steel Phoenix between asteroids that should have been impossible to avoid. When the ship's computer warned him that a course correction was suicide, he ignored it and made the turn anyway. His hands moved over the controls with instinctive precision born from years of experience. They are following us in, Nara said with her eyes closed in concentration. The lead pilot is very confident. He thinks this is just another hunt, but the second pilot is nervous. He has never flown in an asteroid field before. What about the third ship? The third pilot is angry. He wants to use the big weapons to blow up everything, including us. But the leader will not let him because they want me alive. An energy beam flashed past the ship's hull close enough to overload several external sensors. The Korthak were firing, but they had to be careful not to hit the asteroids around them. One wrong shot could start a chain reaction that would destroy everything in this part of the field. Jiho saw his chance and took it. He flew directly toward a cluster of particularly unstable asteroids that were held together by electromagnetic forces. At the last second, he fired the ship's mining lasers at the connecting points between the rocks. The cluster exploded outward in all directions, creating a deadly cloud of debris. The leading Korthak ship flew straight into the expanding field of rock fragments. Its shields overloaded, and the hull began taking damage from hundreds of small impacts. "The lead pilot is now very afraid," Nara reported. "He is trying to pull back, but there are asteroids on all sides." "Good. What about the other two?" "They are splitting up. One is trying to go around to cut us off. The other is falling back to avoid the debris." Jiho continued his insane flight through the asteroid field. The steel phoenix groaned and shuddered as near misses from floating rocks scraped against her hull. Warning lights flashed all over the control panel, but somehow the old ship held together. The Korthak ships were having a much harder time. They were built for straight-line speed and heavy combat. Flying through a constantly shifting maze of obstacles was not what they were designed for. Two of them had already taken significant damage, and the third was struggling to keep up. "I have an idea," Nara said suddenly. Her markings were glowing with determination, now instead of fear. "The Korthak pilots are connected to their ships through neural links. If I project the right emotions at them, I might be able to disrupt their concentration. Is that safe for you?" "I do not know, but it is better than being captured." Nara closed. Her eyes and her crystal markings began to glow brighter than Jiho had ever seen them. Colors swirled across her skin in complex patterns as she reached out with her empathic abilities. She was projecting pure terror and confusion directly into the minds of the Korthak pilots. The effect was immediate. The pursuing ships began flying erratically as their pilots fought against the alien emotions flooding their minds. One ship clipped an asteroid and went spinning out of control. Another fired its weapons wildly in all directions, trying to hit an enemy that existed only in the pilot's mind. "It is working," Nara gasped. The effort was clearly exhausting her, but she maintained her concentration. Jiho pushed the steel phoenix to its absolute limits as they raced through the final section of the debris field. Behind them, the Korthak ships were falling further and further back as their pilots struggled with the empathic assault. Finally, they burst out of the asteroid field into clear space. The Korthak ships were still trapped in the debris, trying to deal with their panicked and confused pilots. It would be hours before they could reorganize and continue the pursuit. "Set course for Mena Station," Jiho ordered. "Maximum speed." Nara collapsed in her seat as her markings faded to exhausted gray. The empathic projection had drained her completely, but they were alive and free. "For now, that was impossible, flying boss," Hyan said with admiration in his voice. "I have never seen anything like it." Jiho looked back at the debris field where the Korthak ships were still struggling to escape. Sometimes impossible is just another word for difficult. And humans do not give up just because something is difficult. Nara's markings flickered with faint purple light as she smiled at him. They had survived the first encounter, but both of them knew the Korthak would not give up so easily. The chase was far from over. Mena Station hung in the void like a giant metal flower with its docking arms spread wide to welcome ships from across the galaxy. The trading post was neutral territory where all species could conduct business without fear of political interference. It was also one of the few places in this sector where the Steel Phoenix could get proper repairs. Director Sora Park met them at the main docking bay. She was a stern woman in her 50s who had been running Mena Station for over 20 years. Her gray hair was pulled back in a practical style, and her clothes were clean but worn from years of hard work. "Jiho, you look terrible," she said as she embraced her former student. "And your ship looks even worse. What kind of trouble have you gotten yourself into this time?" "The kind that follows you home," Jiho replied. He gestured toward Nara, who was standing quietly beside him. "Sora, meet Nara. She's the reason the Korthak are hunting us." Sora's eyes widened as she took in Nara's alien features and the crystal markings that glowed with nervous blue light. Villani, I have not seen one of your people in this sector for many years. What brings you so far from your homeworld? Nara's markings shifted to sad blue as she explained about the diplomatic mission and the Korthak attack. Her human language had improved greatly during the journey to Mina Station, but she still spoke with the musical accent that made everything sound like poetry. My people wanted to trade with human colonies, she said. We heard that humans are different from other species, that you help others even when it is dangerous for you. And now you have seen proof of that, Sora said with a meaningful look at Jiho. Only a human would rescue an alien refugee and then fight 3 Korthak warships to protect her. Over the next few days, the Steel Phoenix underwent repairs, while Jiho and Nara stayed in guest quarters on the station. The forced rest gave them time to talk and learn more about each other's cultures. Nara was fascinated by human stories of exploration and adventure, while Jiho was amazed by Villani, art and philosophy. They spent hours walking through the station's garden levels, where plants from dozens of worlds grew under artificial sunlight. Nara's markings glowed with wonder as she experienced flowers and trees that did not exist on her homeworld. When she was happy, the crystal patterns on her skin danced with golden light that made her look like a living work of art. Your markings are beautiful, Jiho said one evening as they sat beside a fountain watching alien fish swim in the clear water. On my world, we have nothing like them. Nara's markings shifted to the soft purple color that Jiho had learned meant affection. Humans have something better, she said quietly. You have faces that show feeling. When you smile or frown or look surprised, your emotions are written in your expression. Villani faces do not change like that. But your markings show so much. More than faces ever could. I can see exactly how you feel about everything. That is not always good, Nara said with a shy smile. Sometimes emotions should be private. As she spoke, her markings glowed brighter purple, and Jiho realized she was talking about her growing feelings for him. The attraction between them had been building since their escape from the Korthak, but neither had spoken about it directly. Nara, he began, but she held up a hand to stop him. I know what you want to say, that we are too different. That humans and Villani could never be together. Your engineer Tay has already told me this. Tay spoke to you about us. He is worried for you. He says that most species in the galaxy think such relationships are impossible, that it would bring trouble for both of us. Jiho felt anger rise in his chest. Tay means well, but he does not get to decide what is possible for me. Humans have a saying, love finds a way. Nara's markings blazed with brilliant gold light as happiness flooded through her. On my world we have a similar saying. The heart knows no boundaries. They moved closer together on the bench and Jiho took her delicate hand in his. Her skin was warm and the crystal markings pulsed gently under his touch. When she looked into his eyes, her markings shifted to a color he had never seen before. Deep purple mixed with gold to create something that looked like liquid starlight. What does that color mean? He asked softly. It has no name in your language. It is what Villani feel when we find our life companion, the one we want to share everything with. Before Jiho could respond, an alarm began sounding throughout the station. Emergency lights flashed red and Sora's voice came over the communication system. All residents return to your quarters immediately. We have incoming ships of unknown intent. This is not a drill. Jiho and Nara hurried back to their quarters, where they found Hein and Tay waiting with worried expressions. Through the large viewing window, they could see a sleek ship approaching the station. It was clearly Villani design with flowing curves and elegant lines. It is a rescue ship from my homeworld, Nara said as her markings brightened with hope. They must have come looking for survivors from our diplomatic mission. The ship docked at the main port, and soon a delegation of Villani were escorted to the guest quarters. The leader was a tall male with silver markings that indicated high rank among his people. His crystal patterns glowed with formal blue light as he greeted Nara in their musical language. "This is my brother Kale," Nara explained to Jiho. "Hey," leads the rescue mission. Kale spoke to Nara in rapid Vellani while his markings shifted through various colors. Jiho could not understand the words, but he could see that it was an intense conversation. Finally, Nara's markings flashed angry red, and she responded in equally rapid speech. "What are they talking about?" Jiho asked Tay quietly. "Probably telling her she needs to come home where it is safe. That staying with humans is too dangerous." Nara turned to face Jiho with determination written in every line of her body. Her markings were glowing with the same golden starlight color she had shown him earlier. "My brother says I must return to our homeworld immediately. That the Korthik will never stop hunting me as long as I remain in this sector. He is probably right," Jiho said quietly. "You would be safer with your own people. But I do not want safety," Nara said firmly. "I want to stay with you. I want to learn more about humans and help other species understand what makes you special." Kale spoke again in Vellani, and this time his markings showed clear disapproval. Nara's response was equally firm, and her brother's expression grew more concerned. "He says that attachment to an alien will bring shame to our family," Nara translated. "That Vellani and humans are too different to ever truly understand each other." "What do you think?" Jiho asked. Nara moved to stand beside him and took his hand. Her markings blazed with defiant gold light. "I think that differences make relationships stronger, not weaker. I have learned more about courage and determination from you than I ever learned from my own people." The conversation was interrupted by another alarm. This time Sora's voice carried real fear as she spoke over the communication system. "All ships prepare for immediate departure. Long-range scanners show a Korthik battle fleet approaching. 12 ships including heavy cruisers. Estimated arrival in 6 hours. Through the viewing window they could see other ships beginning to undock from the station as word of the approaching fleet spread. Most civilians wanted to be far away when the Korthik arrived." Kale spoke urgently to Nara with his markings flashing emergency red. She listened and then turned to Jiho with fear and determination warring in her expression. "My brother says we should leave immediately. That the Korthik fleet is too large for anyone to fight." "He is right," Jiho said. "A dozen Korthak warships could destroy this entire station. But if we run, they will just follow us again. And next time they might hurt innocent people trying to get to me." Jiho looked out at the approaching darkness where the Korthak fleet was traveling toward them. 12 warships against a handful of civilian vessels and the station's minimal defenses. It was hopeless, but as he watched other ships fleeing he realized something that made his human stubbornness flare to life. Running away would not solve anything. The Korthak would keep hunting Nara and other innocent Vellani until someone stood up to them. "What if we do not run?" he said quietly. Nara's markings shifted to confused orange. "What do you mean?" "What if instead of running away we fight back? Show the Korthik that their bullying has consequences." Everyone in the room stared at him, as if he had lost his mind. Even Nara's markings showed she thought the idea was insane. Jiho was already forming a plan that was either brilliant or completely crazy. Probably both. Jiho stood in the main conference room of Mina Station, explaining his plan to a room full of skeptical faces. Sora sat at the head of the table while Kale and several other alien captains listened with expressions that ranged from confused to horrified. Nara stood beside Jiho with her markings glowing steady gold to show her support. "You want to fight 12 Korthak warships with civilian vessels and mining equipment," Sora said slowly. "Jiho, I know humans are famous for being stubborn, but this is not stubborn. This is insane." "Maybe," Jiho admitted. "But running away will not solve anything. The Korthik will keep hunting Vellani and other peaceful species until someone shows. Then that their victims can fight back." Kale spoke in his musical Villani language with his markings flashing urgent orange. Nara translated for the room. My brother says that even if we somehow won the battle, it would only make the Korthak send more ships. That we would be starting a war we cannot finish. The war already started when they began enslaving peaceful species, Jiho replied firmly. We would just be fighting back instead of hiding. Captain Ren from the merchant vessel Clear Sky spoke. Up, what exactly are you proposing, human? My ship has cargo haulers and basic shields. How do you expect us to fight military warships? Jiho activated the holographic display in the center of the table. A three-dimensional image of Mina Station appeared showing all the docked ships and the station's industrial facilities. The station has manufacturing bays that can build almost anything if you have the right materials. We take the civilian ships and modify them with weapons and better shields. Turn cargo haulers into fighters and mining ships into bombers. That would take weeks, Sora protested. The Korthak will be here in 5 hours. Not if we work together. Humans are good at quick improvisation, but we will need help from every species here. Villani empathic coordination, Zentari engineering skills, Mokari heavy lifting abilities. Everyone contributes what they do best. Around the table, the various alien captains began murmuring among themselves. Some seemed interested while others were clearly terrified. Nara's markings brightened as she sensed the changing emotions in the room. They are starting to believe it might be possible, she said quietly to Jiho. Fear is being replaced by curiosity. Captain Thors from the Zentari engineering ship spoke with a voice like grinding metal. The human plan has merit. My people can install weapon systems in 2 hours if materials are available. The station has plenty of raw materials, Sora added thoughtfully. Mining lasers can be converted to ship weapons. Cargo containers can be modified into missile launchers. One by one, the other captains began agreeing to help. The prospect of finally fighting back against the Korthak was appealing to species who had spent years running and hiding from the raiders. The next 4 hours passed in a blur of activity. The station's manufacturing bays worked at full capacity as ships were stripped down and rebuilt for combat. Mining lasers were mounted on cargo haulers. Shield generators from the station's power grid were installed on civilian vessels. Cargo containers were filled with explosives and turned into guided missiles. Jiho worked alongside aliens from a dozen different species as they prepared for battle. He watched a Mokari engineer lift massive weapon assemblies that would have required a crane for humans to move. Zentari technicians rewired control systems with 4 arms working simultaneously. Villani used their empathic abilities to coordinate work teams without the need for spoken commands. I have never seen cooperation like this, Nara said as she helped program targeting computers. Her markings glowed with amazed pink light. So many species working together toward one goal. Humans have a saying, Jiho replied as he installed shield controls in a converted cargo ship. The enemy of my enemy is my friend. But this is more than friendship. This is unity. As the work continued, word of their plan spread throughout the station. Alien civilians who had been planning to evacuate instead volunteered to help. Children too young to work became messengers carrying tools and supplies between work teams. Even species that were traditionally enemies found themselves working side by side against the common threat. Kale approached Jiho as he made final adjustments to the Steel Phoenix weapon systems. The Villani male's markings showed reluctant respect mixed with concern. My sister has chosen to stay and fight beside you, he said in careful human language. I still think this plan is dangerous beyond reason, probably, Jiho agreed. But sometimes dangerous is the only choice that leads to freedom. If we survive this battle, I want to understand humans better. Your species does things that seem impossible to the rest of us. And after this battle, other species will know that the Korthak can be beaten. That will be worth the risk. The long-range sensors detected the Korthak fleet when they were still an hour away. 12 warships in standard attack formation with Commander Vex 9's flagship leading the assault. They were expecting to find a defenseless trading station and a few scattered civilian ships. Instead, they found 15 modified vessels waiting in defensive positions around Mina Station. The ships looked strange, with weapons mounted in unusual places and armor plating welded over cargo holds. But their formation was tight, and their crews were ready. "Attention Korthak fleet," Jiho broadcast from the Steel Phoenix Bridge. "This is Captain Jiho Kim speaking for the Mina Station Defense Force. You are not welcome here. Turn around and leave." Commander Vex 9's harsh laughter came through the communication system. "Defense Force, you amuse me, human. I see converted cargo ships and mining vessels. Do you really think such toys can stand against Korthak warships?" "There's only one way to find out," Jiho replied. The battle began when the Korthak fleet opened fire at maximum range. Energy beams lashed out across space toward the defending ships, but the improvised fleet did not respond as the Korthak expected. Instead of spreading out and trying to flee, they moved closer together in a tight formation. Nara sat in the co-pilot seat of the Steel Phoenix with her eyes closed and her markings blazing with brilliant white light. She was using her empathic abilities to link the minds of every pilot in the defense fleet. Through her mental connection, they could anticipate each other's movements and coordinate their attacks with perfect timing. "I can feel all of you," she said in wonder as the empathic link strengthened. Human determination, Zentari precision, Mokari strength, all of it flowing together. The effect was immediate and devastating. The defense fleet moved like a single organism, with each ship knowing exactly where the others would be at any moment. When the Korthak fired their weapons, the defending ships were already moving to avoid them. When the defenders attacked, they did so with coordinated precision that overwhelmed the Korthak targeting systems. The first Korthak ship was destroyed when 3 converted cargo haulers fired their mining lasers at the same weak point in its shields. The second fell to a barrage of improvised missiles that struck from multiple directions simultaneously. "Impossible," Commander Vex 9 snarled over the communication channel. "How are civilian ships defeating my warships?" "Because we are not fighting as individual ships," Jiho replied as he piloted the Steel Phoenix through a deadly crossfire. "We are fighting as one fleet with one purpose." The battle raged for an hour, with neither side able to gain a decisive advantage. The Korthak had superior weapons and armor, but the defense fleet had perfect coordination and the desperate courage of beings fighting for their freedom. The turning point came when Nara's empathic abilities reached their full potential. She began projecting human emotions across the entire battlefield. The Korthak pilots suddenly found their minds flooded with alien feelings of hope and determination and refusal to give up. The effect was more devastating than any weapon. Korthak were trained to fight opponents motivated by fear or greed or simple survival. They had no defense against enemies who fought because it was the right thing to do. One by one, the Korthak ships began making mistakes. Pilots hesitated at crucial moments or fired at the wrong targets. Their formation broke apart as confusion spread through their ranks. Commander Vex 9's flagship was the last to fall. Surrounded by the remaining ships of the defense fleet, it fought to the end, but was finally overwhelmed by concentrated fire from every direction. In the aftermath of the battle, the surviving defenders gathered around Mina Station to survey the wreckage. 9 Korthak ships had been destroyed, and the other 3 had fled into hyperspace. The defense fleet had lost 4 vessels, but most of their crews had been rescued. "We did it," Nora said in amazement as her markings cycled through every color of joy and wonder. "We actually defeated a Korthak battle fleet." News of the victory spread quickly throughout the galaxy. The idea that civilian ships crewed by multiple species could defeat Korthak warships was revolutionary. Other worlds began organizing their own defense fleets, using the tactics developed at Mina Station. 3 months later, Jiho and Nara stood on the observation deck of their new ship, watching a convoy of refugee vessels dock at the station. They had established a rescue service that helped displaced aliens find safe homes away from raiders and slavers. "The Galactic Council wants to give us an official commendation," Nara said as she read the latest communication from the central government. "Politicians always want to take credit after the hard work is done," Jiho replied with a smile. Nara's markings glowed with the liquid starlight color that meant deep love as she looked at him. "Do you regret any of it? Rescuing me, fighting the Korthik, starting this new life? The only thing I regret is not finding you sooner." They had proven that love could exist between any species, and that cooperation was stronger than conflict. Most importantly, they had shown the galaxy that sometimes the impossible was just another word for something that had never been tried before. In the distance, their rescue ships prepared for another mission to help aliens in need. The work would never be finished, but that did not matter. As long as there were beings who needed help, there would be humans and their allies ready to provide it, because that was what humans did. They never gave up and they never left anyone behind.